r/Askreddit teachers of Reddit. What would you change about the school system? Serious? Members of the community who serve on the Board of Education should be required to spend time observing classes on a regular basis in order to glean a fuller, more realistic sense of what teaching and learning are all about in contemporary classrooms. Too often, decision makers on boards only have vicarious knowledge of topics they are voting on, including budgets, which directly impact the educational system and its results. At the same time, when important people do come and observe, teachers will teach and behave differently, usually the bad ones, that is. It's the same as when a parent of a troublesome student comes to observe. The normally obnoxious student is suddenly a little angel. I'm in the UK. Give teachers more time to prepare lessons away from the classroom. I teach for the majority of the day, with an hour off for lunch and perhaps another hour of non-contact time to do all of my marking, planning, etc. Sometimes I want to set up an amazing lesson. I'm computer science, but it's quite often a choice of doing it in the evening and neglecting my own kids, or rushing it to be good enough but not amazing. I feel like in business, if you were pitching to a client, you'd give the presenter a decent amount of time to sort out the pitch surely, not expect him to half-ass it in his own time in the evening. I absolutely agree with you. America is facing the same problems. My mom is a teacher and I know just how much time she spends outside of her designated hours, so that she can feel like her purpose is fulfilled. Teachers will truly go the extra mile for their students. The system is what is messed up. The teachers are the ones that get blamed for it. I created a post to bring teachers and students together. Within this post I address several issues. I really feel like your insight will help create understanding from both parties. The teachers want to help. The students want their help. I hope you contribute to this post. UK high school teacher here. Allow students to fail. Not all of them, obviously, just the ones that decide not to take the help on offer. If I have a class of 30 students, 27 of them will do the work I set, turn up to the lessons, ask for help when they don't get it. However, the 2 or 3 that don't want to be there take up so much more of my time than the other 27. And at the end of the year, I get dragged over the coals to explain why these 3 students didn't do as well as their previous data shows. As a UK student I seriously agree. Get pissed off when a couple of kids take up about half a lesson because they refuse to do the work. Taught a college level chemistry class. I definitely say, do away with busy work and focus on enforcing concepts. Critical thinking is definitely lacking in most education systems. Edit. More insight to my thought on critical thinking in this thread. Teaching critical thinking is incredibly difficult. Being able to think critically requires a surprising amount of background knowledge. Dedicated critical thinking programs have been tried in school and the results were not that beneficial because students don't transfer skills easily from one subject area to the next. Critical thinking should, of course, be taught within the context of a course, but trying to teach critical thinking on its own isn't as useful for average learners as you might think. Have schools start a little later, so people don't have to wake up at 5 to 6 am. My high school required us to be in homeroom by 7:15 am. We were done by 2 pm, but the schedule was a vestige from agricultural days. Most of the area has been suburban for decades with few working farms and even fewer family farms. During much of the school year, the trip to school happened in darkness or the break of dawn at best. Most families no longer have a stay-at-home parent, so school hours should generally reflect regular working hours. Why can't school be a 9 to 5 like jobs, with no homework? 2 of those hours could be free reign study hall or tutoring. Basically just doing your homework at school. American teacher here. 2 things. First, make teaching a true 9 to 5. Start at a reasonable time and build in enough time in the school day for teachers and students alike to get their outside of class work done. Second, give up on the notion that every child needs to or should go to college. There's not even room in our colleges for that to happen anyway, and there are plenty of good jobs that need doing that do not involve a 4-year degree. Focus more on education beyond high school, less in college or university education. Second, give up on the notion that every child needs to or should go to college. I agree, we need to face the reality that as much as want them to go, it's not going to happen. Reduce the amount of standardized testing, especially at the elementary school level. The kids I work with have so many different forms of standardized, multiple choice assessments that it's exhausting for them. I've worked with usually good students who happen to have test anxiety, and these tests might not even be an accurate measure of their knowledge, since they've become so psyched out in the high stakes testing mentality. I've worked with usually good students who happen to have test anxiety, and these tests might not even be an accurate measure of their knowledge. Yup. And on the other side of the coin, you have students, especially at the high school level, who couldn't care less about school, being asked to take a test where there's no incentive for them to do well, then using this information to grade teachers and determine school funding. What could possibly go wrong? A test's biased against kids that just don't give a shit. Ref, old onion vid or something. I quit teaching after a year and a month. If I could change something, I would give more emotional support and counseling to kids who need it. I loved my kids, but I was not a mental health professional or a social worker, and, especially because I was GFA, often did not know what to do in certain situations. My students, 5th grade, were often very violent with each other and me, which was why I left. A student hurt me. My admin was not supportive and refused to give any sort of consequences or give students extra emotional help because it would make the school look bad, even when the student injured me. So my students knew that teachers were powerless and were only compliant when offered candy, which I refused to do on a daily basis unlike other teachers. Other teachers at my school got hurt in the classroom by students as well. In short, student behavior needs to be taken more seriously, not necessarily on a punitive way, but in a way that helps them heal and understand that what they did can't happen again. A principal doing nothing and saying that you need to be cutting them a break when they injure a teacher is wrong. My wife is learning to be a teacher in the preschool/kindergarten age range. She feels homework can become too overbearing and says that kids need to spend more time outside or engaged in play. I teach 11-16s. I think it widens the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Some kids have parents who will sit down every night and talk through their work with them. Others have parents who can't because they can't, or because they're at work. It's most noticeable when they do a project and some bringing beautiful folders with excellent colors and library researched. Obviously lots of help from parents. Others have a few scraps of paper given to student by me, written in biro, and they have no access to color or a parent who can help. When you worked hard on something and it still looks worse than the lazy rich kids who got his tutor to help, it makes you think that you are just no good. I teach math at the high school level. I think more block scheduling could benefit students learning greatly. It is ineffective for students to constantly switch between topics taught in 7 classes every single day. Block scheduling can grant more integrated instruction, more project-based learning, and possibly less homework. I'm aware many high schools do block scheduling. I just wish mine did. Possibly less homework. I have block scheduling, but I'm still up to 11 to 12 every night doing homework. It's so exhausting. Some of my teachers allow us to use the last half an hour or so to do our homework, and not necessarily in that subject either. Other teachers just stuffed as much content into 3.5 hours as humanly possible. The age 2 grade thing. Children do not develop at the same pace physically, let alone intellectually. I have some mixed opinions about this. I was likely ahead of my grade academically as a kid, but I wasn't very advanced socially. I worry that people who skip grades or stay behind lose out on social learning, which I think is just as important at young ages as math and reading. I agree. I think this is one of the big problems with getting rid of age-based grades. It's an anecdotal experience, but I remember a kid who skipped a few grades in school, but never quite fit in, because he was years younger than the rest of us. He was really smart, but significantly less mature, by no fault of his own, and I'm sure that took a toll on him. Is every kid like that? No. But it's definitely important to be around like-aged people to develop socially. Later starts. Normalize the process of being held back if a student is struggling. Push for economics/finance, philosophy, focus on ethics, and music to be mandated as a part of a national curriculum starting from kindergarten. Edit. The biggest pushback seems to be for music education. I argue that the pattern recognition / retention, auditory acuity, memory tasks, fine motor skills, symbolic logic / translation, etc. Not to mention discipline, routine, and critical listening that collaborative musical activity develops also supports a child's receptiveness to new facts and ideas. Music education is enjoyable, fruitful, and deeply satisfying if done right. The issue is that we don't have enough good music teachers, something that can be remedied if a national curriculum and best practice system is developed to guide new music teachers.